Welcome to the Growth Boss podcast, where we seek out the secrets to high-performing campaigns from some of the smartest marketers and management consultants in the world. I'm your host, Jared Smith. Today, I have Mads Singers with us, and he's going to teach us how to 5x your business by actually doing less. Mads is a seasoned management coach with over 12 years of experience, and he has helped countless online business owners and entrepreneurs across a wide array of industries. His main focus is on effective people management, helping businesses optimize their teams for growth and success. From large corporations like Shell and Coca-Cola to small startups, Mads has worked with organizations of all sizes to help them build strong, high-performing teams. Mads, thanks so much for being here today.
The pleasure is all mine. The pleasure is all mine.
Awesome. So before we dive into kind of your recipe for helping businesses and business owners 5x their business, I have, kind of a personal dilemma that I've been dealing with. So I'm thinking I'm probably a traditional entrepreneur that you have probably worked with in the past. I have always struggled with managing others. It's so funny because I hired a coach probably 5 years into my first SEO agency. And I, at that point, had not talked to anybody on my team. Everybody was virtual. I'd never had a video conversation with any of them. And the coach came in. He's like, how often do you have one-on-ones? And how often do you meet with your team? I'm like, never. I'm like, is that normal? So why do certain people, and I am an extreme introvert, why do we struggle so much with management?
Honestly, management is a skill, right? One of the biggest misconceptions is that there's born leaders. Like, reality is a lot of time people look at individuals who are more assertive or a little bit more outgoing and they say, oh, they're a natural leader. Reality is, whatever your personality type is, to become a great leader, there's a lot to learn. And it doesn't matter who you are. The biggest issue and the biggest misconception is that most people think that some people just get it and just know what to do and others don't. And you have the good old saying that the best sales guy doesn't make the best sales manager, the best engineer doesn't make the best engineering manager. Well, I actually disagree with that to a large extent, because if someone can learn how to be the best sales guy, if they have what it takes to learn to become the number one at sales, they can also learn how to be a great manager. But being a great sales guy doesn't automatically make you a great manager, because management is a skill set, right? So where a lot of people end up struggling is that they're doing, let's say, SEO. So they're doing SEO, they're busy doing SEO, they start an agency, and they've got all their initial success by doing SEO. So they keep focusing on doing SEO. What most people don't realize is, if you have some bars of like, how much management do you know? How much business do you know? How much SEO you know? The thing is, they spend so much time trying to gain an incremental 1% improvement in this thing they're already up here at.
Yes.
Instead of taking something down here, and in the same time, they could move mountains, right?
Yes.
And that, honestly, that is the number one challenge most business owners have. And this is not just business owners. It's every time they promote a manager into a management role because they're great at link building or because they're great at whatever. What do? Do they give them any training whatsoever? Absolutely not.
They don't.
Right?
I can tell you from experience.
Here's the thing. In most companies, if they hire salespeople, they give them training. If they hire an SEO, they give them training. When they hire a manager, when they promote someone into management, they're like, I'm sure you'll figure it out. So let's not train our most important people. I'm sure that will go well.
Yes, exactly. And it never does. And I struggled for years because of that. So that's very, very helpful. So 5Xing a business, doing less work, where do you start?
So the first starting point, and it's super relevant to agencies, but it's relevant to all businesses, really. You've heard about niching down, right? Most people have.
Yeah.
However, niching down is not based on a particular industry. Niching down is all about niching down to a process. When you look at very successful companies, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, all of this stuff, when Coca-Cola started out, a million people like, oh, you know how to make drinks. You should make burgers. You should make this. You should make this. They're successful because they didn't, right? They're successful because they figured out a process that they could do repeatedly over and over and over again and just scale it out. If we take that to the world of SEO, most agencies, they might only work with real estate companies, but working with a real estate company with a one-man shop or with a huge, agencies with 17 locations and 4 different websites or whatever, it is not the same.
No.
One of the key things, and it's particularly dominant in agencies, one of the key things is if you as the owner are needed, if you are required, you haven't figured out your process. And what I mean with that is, as an owner, if you're like, I'm the only one that can figure out what the strategy for a client should be. Here's the problem. Your clients are different. Right? Okay. If you need to niche down at a process level and say, let's pick something random. We only work with e-commerce stores on Shopify. Yeah, you could probably do that to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
So if you say e-commerce stores on Shopify, well, they all have a lot of similarities. So if you say, let's say you go and get your first 5 clients. Well, you have your first 5 clients and you can say, what do we do? Every time a new client comes in the door, what are the steps? Let's document them. Let's make someone responsible for, let's say, doing an audit when people come in the door. That's the first step. And here's the thing, that audit is the same for every single client, right? Now, if you as an agency owner is doing that, the first 10 times you do it, that's great. And then your challenge is document what you do. Because this is the big problem. When people in agencies, they're like, yeah, we do SEO, right? And then they're like, one day it's a local business, another day it's an e-commerce store, another day it's something totally different. They're the only one who can do it.
Yes.
Because it's like a consultant. Like they're not actually building a business. They're building themselves a sometimes very well-paid full-time job. But if you take one person out and the whole thing collapses, you ain't got a business, right? And that's the aspect. So the key thing is, what is your one process? I own 6 different companies, and generally they have a core process. People always ask me, why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? Like with my management training, for example, like I can literally speak about management for 2 months and you couldn't shut me up, right?
Yeah.
However, I have one training that I do. And I have it as a course. I have it as me doing it with companies, either in person or online. But I have one training. Why is that? Because that is what people need. I am better at delivering that training than anyone else on planet Earth. And I do the same thing over and over and over again because I know it works. I've had more than 800 clients. I have 100% money back guarantee. If you get any of my training and you ain't happy, I will happily refund you. I've had more than 800 clients and not a single person have looked for their money back. And it's not because, I'm sure I do stupid shit, right? We all do. But the thing is, I figured out what is the process. What is it that works for every single company? And, everyone comes to me. They're like, yeah, but, we are special because blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I know.
Yep.
Just like when you're an SEO agency, every company that comes to you feel they are special, right? They all need links. They all need content. They all need whatever, right? But this is the essence. So the starting point for me is always, have you figured out your process? And the second thing, again, a lot of SEOs, because of this, no one else can do it but me. What they dream about when they're building a company is copying themselves. So they say, if I just had one more person that knew all the stuff I know, we could do a lot more stuff. Don't do that. Again, it makes you vulnerable. Companies exist, or businesses exist, for the specialization of labor. What does that mean? It means we turn it upside down. So instead of finding someone who knows all the stuff you do, you break out your process and you break it into pieces. You do that for 2 reasons. Number one is training someone to know everything you do in the world of SEO will take you 3, 4, 5 years.
Yes.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Right? Teaching someone how to do an audit. And you're like, yeah, I can see things no one else can see. Right? Here's the thing. If you're not good at explaining and documenting what you do, you're not good at SEO.
Yeah.
If you cannot sit down and, again, look at these e-commerce Shopify stores and said, what do I actually look at? Well, the page index. Yes, no.
Yeah.
How do someone check that? Okay, great. Go through the checklist, right? It's literally a checklist. And once every 400 times, is there something that's out of whack and something that's weird properly? And people will either figure it out or whatever, right?
Yes.
But 1 out of 400 times is very different than every single time.
Absolutely.
Right? That's the first step. What's the next step? Okay, content briefs. Well, okay, on our e-commerce store, we have 3 types of content. We have a product page, we have and I'm making up shit here, but we have a product page, we have a category page, and we have a blog post. How do we do these? Here's a process for each of them. Here's how we do it. Now, in the beginning, you might have one person who just focuses on content. Now, when you grow and scale, you might have one person who just do product description. You might have one person, so they get really, really, really good at that. So as I said, there's 2 reasons why you do this. Number one is so that you can hire and train people quickly, right? If someone just have to learn, if you have a good writer that just have to learn how to write good product descriptions, it ain't going to take you 3 years to train them. It's going to take you 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks maximum, right? So you break down your process into steps. You make sure it's getting done. And in the beginning, when you're starting out a business, you can't just hire 10 people from day one, right? So this is a gradual process. In the beginning, you might have people who are doing 2 or 3 processes. And over time, your goal is to break it down and, grow the team, grow the managers and so on. But that's the essence. If you get that piece right, everything else will be significantly easier.
Love that. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, that was the hardest part for me. I was that guy that was like, but you don't understand, I'm special. And, it would take 3 to 5 years for me to teach somebody. So how do I scale that? And then I started creating Loom videos. I was just like, I'm just going to do what I normally do. And I'm going to talk through it on a video. And then I could have my team take those videos, break them out into processes. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm actually not that special. Like, this can be done. So anyone out there that's struggling, thinking, hey, I'm special, my process is special, start with some Loom videos and just record yourself going through the motions. And you'll realize everything can be codified. Everything can be documented. You're not as special. You may be special to come up with it, but you're not so special that it can't be replicated.
2 key things. One of my favorite saying on this planet is the best way to learn is to teach. And the reason is all of these things that we think, oh, I could never explain this. The second you start having to teach someone else, you actually get better at it because you start looking at it in a more logical, like when you have never had to teach someone, often your brain is scattered all over the place and you're just jumping from A to C to whatever, right? But when you actually start teaching other people, you start putting it into systems and frameworks, and the 10th time you teach someone how to do something, it is way better than the first time.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Time, right?
Yeah.
Now, following up on that, right? The key thing again, yes, you can document everything, but if you haven't figured out your process and you're just documenting how to do SEO on any website on planet Earth, good luck.
Yeah.
Most businesses, from someone starts their first business to they make decent money, it typically takes 3 years.
Okay.
And the big reason behind that are 1,000 days, but that's roughly 3 years, right? So typically the biggest reason behind that is twofold. In the beginning, they're all like, yes, anyone with SEO, come my way. Mm-hmm. And it takes them a while to figure out, oh, now we have had 17 clients in this niche. Let's do this.
Yes.
That's a key aspect. Now, sometimes reality is when you first start out, when you're hungry and you need to eat, sometimes you take clients. And honestly, if you start your first agency, take 5 clients, take 10 different clients. And then when you have had your first 10, you look at them and you say, who were my best clients?
Yes.
And how can I get more of those people?
I love that.
How can I get more of those people? And so the thing is, people, again, they mess up this niching down because sometimes like my management coaching goes over many niches, right? Like I've been training factories, I've been training like any kind of stuff, but it's the same thing I do. Now, in the world of SEO, let's say you run a link building agency. Let's say you only sell guest posts. Well, you can sell guest posts to any niche, to any whatever. It's the same thing you're doing.
Yes.
Right? So your process is the same. And by the way, one of the reasons why many of the successful exits tend to be in the link building niche is because it is significantly easier for link building companies to specialize, because
Absolutely.
there's a little bit less of all of this. It's like, well,
Yep.
we do guest post, or we do whatever, PBN. So we do, like, most companies have one or two things and they're kind of specialized in that. And people are like, oh yeah, but links are more profitable, links are better. And like, no, they just have a process and they follow it. But without thinking about it, they figure out what their process is and they scale it.
It is. It's a much simpler process than understanding the audits and the on page, and then incorporating the link building and the maps. And, there's a lot of other components that do require maybe a little more thinking than just, hey, we're writing an article and we're placing that article somewhere. It's a great point.
That's the starting point.
Okay. And what comes next?
What comes next is the people piece. So
yes, accountability.
I do record looms once in a while, but the key thing for me is I don't tell most CEOs or most business owners to sit down and document a ton of processes. I have this philosophy that people who execute the process should own it. So I'm happy if I'm hiring you and I'm giving you a first thing, I'm happy to sit down and do a loom. And when you then have done the process like 17 times, I might say, hey, you're good at that now. Could you document it for me? And by the way, here's a process that shows how we document stuff.
Yeah.
Right? That's the key thing. But next step really becomes the people game. Companies is about people. The value of a business is about the value of the people within it, right? Because the people are what makes it tick. It's what makes it run. If someone buys your business, they're generally buying the business, the process, the client database, and your staff, right? And the staff is the biggest differentiator. If you have ever hired an amazing person and you ever hired someone that sucks, which most people have, you know the difference, right? Now, great managers or even half-decent managers can get good work out of decent people. Horrible managers can absolutely destroy even the best of people, right? So as I said in the beginning, the great starting point is to think, I tell SEOs, you have to make a choice. Do you want to be an SEO or do you want to be a CEO?
Yeah.
And if you want to be...
Subconsciously, I had to make that decision for myself as well, because I was like, I can't do all of this. I don't want to do all of this for the rest of my life. At some point, I want to move up to the next level.
My favorite sentence is, there's always so many meta descriptions that are fun to write. Yeah. When you have written the first 400, life is not fun anymore, right? I love that. But the fundamental mindset here is most of us keep doing what we are comfortable with. And reality is, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be an SEO. But if you start an agency, you're starting a business. And if you want to be an SEO, you have two choices. You either hire someone to be the CEO, which is perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with working in your business if you have someone else doing the high-level thinking. But the essential part of it is that choice has to be made. Now, if you want to build a solid business, if you want to be a CEO, you need to invest in your business and in your management skills, right? All these courses you buy, the 17th link building course you buy, hoping to learn a little golden nugget that you think is going to catapult you forward in your career, and it does absolutely nothing for you, replace that course, replace that book, replace that training with something on business, something on management, something on finance, something that is a complementary skill set and help you become a better CEO.
I love that. Can you give a couple suggestions on management or leadership books that you've found to be helpful?
Definitely. One of my favorites, and also not just because of the title, but First Break All the Rules. That's an amazing book. I love the title. Second book is What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Mm-hmm. Also an incredible book. The Pumpkin Plan is also a great book. Okay. But yeah, lots of great books out there, right? Again, I always say and do the same thing. When I go to the gym, I'm not a particularly great gymmer, but I find people who have been there and done it, and I ask them to help me. Personally, the same thing. Here's the thing. If you're starting an SEO agency, you're often better learning going the sales route. Like the problem is most people start an agency from being a good SEO.
Mm-hmm.
But the hardest part of an agency is typically the sales and lead generation.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of the really successful agencies I know have been started by salespeople.
Yep.
And here's the thing, you can literally start an SEO company by white labeling everything. Because as I always say, you can go and hire a decent SEO for 3, 4, 5 grand a month.
Yep.
I wouldn't work for that. Right?
Yep.
But you can go and hire a decent SEO for that. You often struggle to find salespeople for those kind of money. Right? So sales and leads in general is the lifeblood of all businesses. Right? And it's incredibly important to make sure that you look at that aspect. What happens in many businesses, people, they jump on sales and marketing, they find a client, and then they jump back into operations, right? Yeah. And then they're focused on operations, and they're like, yeah, I'm making money. And then suddenly the client leaves, and they're like, oh, I'm not making money anymore. Mm-hmm. And then they have to jump back in the bandwagon, right? Yeah. One of the things I always tell business owners is establish your daily routine for sales and marketing. If you're a business owner and haven't yet got a sales team, you are the sales team, mm-hmm. right? What I've done for most of my businesses, every single morning, the first thing, I spent 20 minutes going onto LinkedIn, find 3 to 4 potential customers, and I write them a very custom, very specific message. I'm not writing them directly to try and sell them. I'm not being like, hey, do you need SEO? No. I'm trying to connect with people who are my ideal audience, and I'm trying to give them some value. What most people do when they do this stuff is they sit down for 2 days, they spend 8 hours every day doing it, and they automate it, and they don't know what works. Right?
Yes.
Here's the thing. If you just message 3 or 4 people every single day, no exception, 2 things will happen. You will never run out of leads, because every so often someone will come back to you. And number 2, you will actually figure out what works. Because if you message 3 or 4 people every single day, month after month after month, you will learn and get better.
Yeah.
And
that's
it's
great.
A very simple process. And here's the thing, messaging 3 or 4 people once a day, if you know that's your to-do the first thing in the morning, you will do it and you'll get it done. Mm-hmm. But if you go out and try and do 8 hours of this or 8 hours of that, or I see so many people who don't know how to sell. They don't know their sales process. They go out and try and hire a sales guy, and it's never going to work. They don't know what they're selling. They don't know how to sell it. And there's no chance they're going to teach someone. Like the success rate is 0.2% or something like that. Right?
Yeah. And
they all blaming sales guys. They're all like, yeah, sales guys suck. I hired this sales guy. I hired that sales guy, and none of them work. Sales guys are shit. I'm like, no, you don't know what you're doing.
Right. Exactly. What about practical kind of accountability for your team? What does that look like on a daily or weekly basis? Do you like status sheets, or how do you like to, have them report back to you?
Yeah. So managed by numbers. And what I mean with that is you generally, well, we can jump into this a little bit after, but you generally want to give your people ownership and responsibility for an area of either of your process or for an area of your business, right? So if I say, Jared, I need an audit monster, and I love how detail-oriented you are, and I love how whatever, I want you to own audit. Here's the goal. Every time we have a new client, the audit needs to be done within 3 working days. Every time we do an audit, it needs to be spot on, right? That's your goal. And I have a big KPI sheet, and I see what's the average time it took to make an audit. And as long as that's less than 3 days, I'm going to say, Jared, amazing work. I love you. And when it suddenly says 8 days, I sit down and say, Jared, you're responsible for this thing. You have not come to me once and said you need more resources or there's a problem. What's happening? What do we need to do to get back to where we need to be. And I'm not going to fix the problem for you because you're responsible for this thing. It is not my role to go and tell you how to fix it. It is my role to ask you how you're going to fix it.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
So that's the simple way. So let's take delegation a bit, because I think delegation is where so many SEOs just hit their head on the wall. Most detail-oriented people think in tasks. They don't think in responsibilities. They think their life is, I have a task list. We need things done. Can you do this thing? Can you do that thing? Whatever. The problem is, every time you hand someone a task, the task eventually comes back to you. Now, when you build up a team of a certain number of people and you give them all tasks, and the tasks all come back, that means every time you hire a new person, you get a little bit more time and it takes more of your time. So by the time you hit 7 or 8 people, you are literally working 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
Does not work.
No.
The only way to do it and succeed is to sit down with people and say, hey, we're doing a lot of links. Pete, we're doing a lot of links. I've seen you're good at link building. I want you to be responsible for our link building efforts. Our goal is to build 100 links a month and within a certain quality metric or whatever, right? And they need to be spread over these clients or whatever. But that's the KPI, that's the goal for you, right? By the way, you have our process. You know what we're doing today, but you're a really smart human being. And I'm sure that over time, you can help make that even better so we can improve on our output. And then Pete says, amazing, I will go and deliver. And here's the thing, when you give people ownership and responsibility, they usually deliver well. Here's the thing, I don't know you well, but I know one thing. I know you are where you are today because at some point, someone trusted you. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that was in an agency or maybe you started a company and clients gave you some money, but the way every single person succeeds, not just become an entrepreneur, but become successful at things, is because someone trusts them to do something. For some people, it's like they work in a company and someone's like, hey, our website is not getting traffic. Can you go and fix it? And suddenly they're sitting figuring out how to do SEO and they figure stuff out. And suddenly they're making the company a ton of money, right? People learn when they're given responsibilities. No one, and any of your audience, no one have ever become successful because someone came, handed them a pile of processes and say, do this thing, press this button 700 times a day. That's not how people succeed. People succeed when they're being given ownership and responsibility. Here's the thing. If you cannot define clear goals for them, you probably haven't set up very good roles. Mm-hmm. The second you give people ownership and responsibility, and you manage, not by having all the work they do come back to you and back and forth, the second you manage people by looking at a sheet every Monday morning and say, how was last week? Did we build our 25 links last week? We did. Great. Pete, thumbs up. Wait a minute, we built 22 links. Pete, in our one-to-one, let's sit down and have a conversation. Yeah. We built 22 links last week. That's not going to get up to our monthly goal. What are you going to do to fix that? Great. Go do it. Yeah. Or, I am not sure I'm confident in that plan. Why don't you go and see if you can figure out other options? Right?
Love that. Yeah. Do you feel that incentives fit into that model at all? Bonusing or anything of that nature in your companies?
Yeah. We do that in quite a few roles. Let me tell you about the problem. Problem is most business owners are driven by money, which is why they start a business in the first place. Most humans are not predominantly driven by money. And that's a mismatch. Mm-hmm. Because if you're incentivizing people with money who are not driven by money, they're going to do exactly this much extra work to get that bonus or get that incentive. And then people sit down and say the incentive doesn't work. And I'm like, no, the incentive work in principle, but you don't understand your people. Mm-hmm. Right? So most people are not motivated by money by nature. They might be here. Like if you say, do you want more money? They're like, yeah, of course. And you know, their husband or their parents or whatever is telling them they should be making more money. Mm-hmm. But the problem is the second there's a carrot dangling in front of them, their additional effort is this. Yeah. Right? So even though they logically want more money, they're not putting in the effort because the money is not the motivator for them. And the problem is most people don't understand individuals. They don't understand humans. And this is one of my big things. So I'm a huge fan of the DISC behavior framework because I love understanding humans and how to work with them. And that's a huge part of my management training is actually learning to understand humans. Also at heyramp.com, people can go do a free DISC test of themselves and the entire team. It costs nothing. They just set up a free account. But this is a great way to get to know yourself a little bit better. But more importantly, getting to know and understand people who are different from you. So, you know the feeling you have, Jared, when you're talking to a sales guy?
Yes.
Right. You don't like them. You don't like the amount of bullshit they come with.
Sure. Yep.
Now, here's the thing. Not everyone dislikes sales guys.
Mm-hmm.
But by nature, you are not a sales guy.
Correct.
You have a very opposite personality to a sales guy.
Okay.
And because of that, when someone is communicating in a totally different way from you, you don't connect. You get off a call and you're like, yep, I did not like that human. Here's the reason. The way you love communicating by nature is written. Your strongest suit of communication is written communication, right?
Okay.
You like when a client sent you a good email with all the details, everything needed. What else do you want in life?
Yep.
Here's the thing. A lot of salespeople like verbal communications. They'll call you up randomly when you're not prepared and they'll be like, right. Jared, I got stuff for you. I got this stuff, right? And about 4 seconds into the conversation, you're like, I want to hang up, but I'm too kind a human.
Yes.
So I'm going to let him talk until such a point where I can make an excuse to get out of the call. Do you need SEO? No, because I'm an SEO agency. Okay, goodbye. Right.
Yeah.
That's the conversation.
Yep.
Here's the thing. When you learn to understand humans, you become a better human yourself. But from a managerial standpoint, it is such an absolute game changer. Because here's the thing. In a business, you need different people. Mm-hmm. You need salespeople in your company.
Yes.
And here's the thing. Even when you're talking with your salespeople, you get really frustrated because they don't communicate the way you communicate. Right?
Yep.
And when you learn and understand why they do what they do and how they do it, and when you learn to actually communicate with them, you don't just become a better boss. You don't just become a better manager, but you become a better human around it. Right? That is essential.
Love it. Is there a favorite book that you have kind of on that topic of communication, understanding different ways that people communicate?
Yeah, that's actually a fun one around the DISC framework. It's worded slightly different, but it's I think it's called Surrounded by Idiots or something. Okay. Just double check. Surrounded by Idiots by a guy called Thomas Erickson. And it's a starting point. It's a good starting point around people.
Okay. The last topic I want to tackle is I want to look at recruiting. I think that's another area that a lot of business owners struggle with, finding the right people, figuring out if they're a good fit. Walk us through your process, since we know you have a process for that to hire successful people.
Let's take a step back.
Okay.
Why do you think most people suck at recruitment?
I think people have a hard time judging people as a general rule. I mean, I know for me, it's taken me a little while to determine if I feel like somebody's going to be a good fit for our culture. I think the technical side is relatively easy, to figure out. Do you have the general technical skills, certifications, and so forth? So more often than not, I'm like, hey, are you going to be a good fit in our company, or are you going to drive everybody on the team crazy?
Here's the thing. Most people suck at interviewing and hiring people because they've never done it. Here's the thing. If I hear about SEO for the first time today, and I go and do some SEO, am I very likely to succeed in the very near future? Probably not.
Yeah.
And again, no one who is going out hiring, none of these business owners, none of these agency owners, they're like, let me read a book about hiring. Let me find someone who have done it before who can help me. Let me go take a training class on how to hire better, right?
Yeah.
It is a skill.
Yes.
It's a skill. Yeah, obviously, you can always learn skills the hard way. Like, I could sit down and spend 5 years learning and figuring out SEO. I could, and I don't want to. I could sit down and figure out everything if you want to. But the thing is, you're much better learning through other people's mistakes, right? So that's the starting point. So starting point is, if you're going to do something that you've never done before, and particularly hiring, hiring is probably the most valuable thing you do as a business owner, right? Yeah. Like, like learning to become better at hiring. Like honestly, you can probably cut your SEO skills in half. And if you improve your hiring skills by 25%, you're going to be significantly more successful. Right. So it's probably one of the most valuable processes you can invest in, right? As a business owner.
Yeah.
So process. First, again, assuming you have your process lined out and you know what you're hiring for, you want to create a great job description because you want to know what you're looking for. And you create a great job description that explains what the role is and what the person should be delivering, right? Maybe even their goal. I am looking to hire a sales guy who can take over my current existing and working sales process where I currently close $50,000 in sales a month. The goal is to get up to speed in 2 months and by month 3 hit 50K sales.
Love that.
Right? Simple. Good description.
Very simple.
Very clear on the ownership and responsibilities. Right?
Yes.
Not the tasks. I mean, you can include some tasks, but the goal is what is the person responsible for? What do they need to own? Right?
Interesting.
And then next step is you put out this job thing. Now, again, if you've never hired before, if you have never put out job posts, there's a lot of stuff to learn. A lot of the time, it can benefit to use recruitment companies or something like that, just because, again, your time is valuable. If you have some funds, if you have no money in the bank, you probably can't. But reality is, again, a company, never let them make the hiring decision. Right. But if you have a company that's good at recruitment and they come and say, okay, you had a job description, here's 10 candidates we believe are going to be great. Everything else being equal, you're probably more likely to succeed.
That's a great point. Yep. Agreed.
Right. So, and again, you can also do it in-house, right? Here's something. You could go and hire someone, a contractor, to help you do it, to help you establish a process in-house. Again, if you do it all yourself, the likelihood that you will have success the first time around is probably not very high. And here's the thing, that's okay. I have done a lot of things the first time in a very shitty way. And the 10th time it's going to be better, and the 50th time it's going to be better. Here's the problem. Most people who have never hired hire 2 people over a period of time, and then they said, I cannot hire, we shouldn't hire, we should just be a one-man business. Because I tried twice and I failed.
Yep.
It's a bit like saying I tried SEO for 2 weeks and I didn't double my traffic, so therefore I stopped doing SEO. Yeah, don't do that, right? So that's the mindset. Now, when you have a good job description, when you have good responsibilities, then we go back to this disc piece. And I haven't talked much about disc, so it's a little bit difficult to jump into too much detail. But the fundamental is different people have different strengths and weaknesses, right? If I was going to hire you, if I was looking for an accountant, if I was looking for an analyst, if I was looking for someone very detail-oriented who's very good with numbers, you would be top of my list. If I was going to hire a sales guy, if I was going to hire someone standing at my sponsor booth promoting my product, you would definitely not be top of the list.
Right.
And here's the thing. People think everyone can learn how to do something. People think if you hire someone great, they can figure everything out. That's not how human works.
Right.
We are born with certain genetics that makes us really good at something. Every strength is a weakness, right? A lot of people look at themselves, they look at other people and they're like, I wish I had this, I wish I had that, I wish I had this. Everything you are, every single one of your strength is a weakness at the same time. By nature, you have a relatively high IQ. And what that does is it naturally makes you less good at verbal communication, right?
It's fascinating.
Now, here's the thing. Everything is, some people, they're very good at, like sales guys. They can be very aggressive. They can be all of this stuff. And in a sales situation, that's great. When they go home and they communicate to their partner in that way, they go like, what the frick is up with you? Piss off. And then suddenly they have problems, right? So every single strength is a weakness at the same time. When you're very good with numbers, you're lacking creativity. Numbers is a left brain skill. Creativity is a right brain skill. The better you are with numbers, like people who try and hire developers that are graphic designers.
Yeah.
If you find me one human who is great at both of those skills,
Yeah.
they don't exist.
Right.
There's great developers who know a little bit about design, and there's amazing designers who know a tiny bit about development. They're not great at both.
Yeah. Agreed.
They're not.
Agreed.
And this is one of the things when you're hiring, when you're doing a job description, you say, hey, I'm looking for someone who can do this and this and this. When you're thinking tasks, you're going to get it wrong, because in the early days, some of these tasks do not overlap. It is not the same person doing them. When you're thinking responsibilities, you can still get into that problem, because when you hire a marketing manager the first time, any marketing manager is not going to be great at all aspects of marketing. They're going to be great at certain aspects, but they're not going to be great at all, because it requires different people to do some of those different skills.
Yeah, 100%. Mads, this has been an absolute pleasure. I have so many nuggets I'm going to get out of this. I didn't know that our audience will as well. Thank you so much again for being here today.
Absolutely my pleasure.